I'm making salmon misoyaki, which translates to miso grilled salmon in Japanese. It's a staple in my house, and it's a super simple, delicious way to prepare salmon fillets at home. I'm gonna show you how to select, prepare, and cook this dish like we do at the restaurants. What's happening, guys? I am Jet Tila, and this is Ready Jet Cook, where I show you how to make some of my favorite Asian dishes from pantry to plate. Let's do this. Japanese, there it is, perfect. So for misoyaki, I'm gonna need mirin, sake, and ginger. Sake and mirin are actually cousins. Mirin is made from sake. Both have alcohol, both brewed from rice, but mirin has sugar in it, so it makes it sweet. So when I think about flavor profiles, you wanna use mirin to sweeten dishes, you wanna use sake to give that kind of burnt rice aroma. Fun fact, in Japan, the word sake just means all alcohol, all booze, beer, wine, etc. So if you want to look like a pro, sake is called nihonshu in Japanese. And then finally, we're gonna need some ginger for this misoyaki. When picking ginger, look for very large hands of ginger instead of small nubs like this, and make sure the ginger is bright yellow to pale yellow. As the ginger ages out, it starts to turn kind of blue, and you don't want that stuff. You know what? It wouldn't hurt to snap a little finger off just to check, and there you have it. So the last thing I need is miso paste. Now, there are several types. This is shiro miso, which is white miso. So it goes from white, yellow to red. The deeper you get, the saltier, the more earthy, the more umami you get. It's basically fermented soybean paste. I mean, there's a lot more flavor though, right? The fermentation creates a lot of umami, that delicious savory note. So just think about this like a soy sauce paste, but it's so much more because there's a lot of layers. It's a really balanced flavor profile. Let's get cooking. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is actually make the misoyaki glaze. But this dish is a twofer because you're also gonna learn how to perfectly grill and season salmon. So the first thing we need to do is actually start the glaze by cooking down some sake and mirin. And the way I'm gonna do that very carefully is to preheat whatever vessel. This is a saucepan, but you can go bigger. Now it's very important, okay, that you're actually gonna pour the sake away from you. I want you to preheat your pan or your saucepan to get it like ripping hot. And very important, if you're cooking in a kitchen that has a low kind of hood space, you can actually just bring it up to a boil from cold. Don't try to flambe if you don't have a lot of hood space. So here we go. Hold your bottle thusly away from you, and I'm just gonna pour away from myself, and there it is. So what you're looking for is for the flames basically to ignite and then go away. And that means the alcohol in this sake is cooked down. So the next ingredient is gonna be mirin. It also has alcohol, but a lot lower by volume. This is gonna give us the sweetness. So mirin, similarly to sake, is an alcohol made of rice. In America, we call these two things rice wine, which is kind of a misnomer in my opinion because, right, wine is made from fermenting of juices. Now these are grains, right? So rice fermentation is a grain. So in my opinion, these are more similar to beer. I'm gonna stick to that one because I think I'm right. So sake is cooked off, the mirin is boiling. Again, the pot is ripping hot, so do be careful. But you can actually see the sake is reduced almost all the way, like 75%. The mirin has also reduced. All those aromatic flavor notes are concentrated. It's time now to add sugar. So it's very important to dissolve this sugar 100%. The sugar is gonna do a few things other than obviously being the sweet in here. It's also gonna give you that kind of syrupy glaze, right? It's gonna marry amazingly with the miso and give you this clingy, delicious glaze. Another thing I'm looking for is that pale yellow look of a reduced sake, which I'm getting now. At this point, I wanna reduce the flame because with all the sugar and the actual thickness of the syrup, it's gonna boil over quickly. So it's miso time. And you know, like I stated, I'm using a yellow miso here because it's the mildest of all three misos, and I'm gonna work that right in. If you've never tasted miso paste by itself, it's not as sharp as soy sauce, right? It doesn't have that deep saltiness of soy sauce. It's got a lot of savoriness to it, almost a sweet floral quality to it. It's a phenomenal ingredient anywhere you're looking for just a little bit of salt and a lot of savoriness. There we go. So as the miso's working in, I'm gonna turn up the heat just a little bit. And my job here now is just to make sure I whisk this in so it incorporates completely smooth into this sauce. All right, so the miso is incorporated perfectly. The sugar has dissolved. That is becoming one beautiful glaze. So I'm gonna turn this to low and I'm gonna show you a phenomenal ginger trick. It's kind of one of those ingredients that makes people go, why is this so delicious? Yes, I could use a planer, I could chop ginger, but I'm gonna show you a way to get just the pure ginger pulp without any skin or fibers. Check this out. Common box grater, you want the smooth, small holes. I'm gonna take a piece of cling film and just stretch it over. You don't have to wrap the entire box grater. Now take the actual ginger. We're gonna break off one finger. Don't worry about peeling. All the magic will happen right here. And the goal here is to get straight ginger pulp, right? I want all the deliciousness of ginger melting into this sauce without grabbing any of the fibers. So just I would say light to medium pressure as you go back and forth, and then watch what happens. Check that out. All of the fibers and the skin ends up there. And what you get concentrated on your grater is 100% pure ginger pulp, just like that. Great for sashimi, phenomenal for this dish. So I'm gonna get this into the pot. I wanna get the ginger in and make this a beautiful kind of glaze. Again, what am I looking for? I'm looking for one kind of perfect consistency, viscosity that'll coat the fish really well. And this is my chance to actually taste it because the sauce is practically done. The saltiness and the savoriness comes from the miso. The sugar really kind of supports it, and that ginger just pops perfectly. So if you're not gonna use this miso sauce right away, just put it in the fridge in an airtight container, and it is good for weeks. So sauce is done, let's focus on fish. The issue is the salmon fillet is kind of a rectangle. It's kind of a pros versus Joes situation. When you take a rectangular piece of fish, you just cut a block off of it and put it on the grill. It doesn't look super cool. I'm gonna show you how chefs deal with this rectangular piece of salmon and make it look like, you know, a piece of art culinaire. Watch this. All right, so first thing I'm gonna look for, this is skin on. We don't need the skin, but I like to leave it on because it keeps the moisture and the fat in. And what I'm gonna do, instead of just cutting a perpendicular block off the right here, watch what I do. I'm gonna take my knife, angle it 45 degrees, start in a little in from the left edge, and watch what happens. Use that blade and let it do the slicing for you. You know what, you eat with your eyes first, so I think it's really important to have food that looks cool. So I'm gonna cut my third piece off the fish now. Perfect. Now I'm making sure to disconnect the actual skin. Now that first piece there, in a restaurant, I would totally use that because I have one side that's sloped and the other side that's flat. Let's save these for later and focus on our 3 slices. So whenever I'm buying salmon, a few things that I'm looking for, right? I'll let your senses be your guide, okay? So visually first, I'm looking for really nice bright orange. I'm also looking for a translucence, like it should look wet, right? But not slimy, there's a big difference there. And then if you are at a piece of salmon you can actually get into, you wanna touch it. I know, it makes fishmongers crazy, but I mean, don't bruise the salmon, but you wanna push it down gently and it should bounce back. The third sense that I rely on is my smell. So if you're close enough to the salmon, it should smell sweet like the ocean. So those are the 3 quick tips on how to pick salmon. Fancy salmon cuts are down, and this is actually called karimi in Japanese. Yes, like French have knife cuts for everything, so do the Japanese. So off angle is called karimi, which is what I've done here. And I'm simply just gonna season with salt and pepper on both sides. One side is totally seasoned. Let's go to the other. I'm using kosher salt, just in case you're wondering. I do like a coarse kosher salt or a flake sea salt. So the seasoning is adhered. Let's talk about the grill. So I'm using a grill pan, right? Few critical steps that ensure really great grilling without sticking. Preheating is number 1. Number 2 is make sure that grill has been cleaned from that last use, which this one obviously has. And I'm relying on that seasoning of the grill, which I can see that this grill has been used, it's been cleaned right. So it's built up a very natural non-stick surface, which is called seasoning. And what you can do to guarantee less stick is to pre-oil the salmon. I'm gonna show you how I like to do it. You know, my buddy Tad and Allie, they give me a hard time because, you know, I like using pan spray. So what I like to do is I'll take the seasoned salmon and hit it with a little bit of spray oil. And you know what, I use the canola because I think it has a better smoke point, it has a higher temperature. And I'll do both sides before I lay it on there. I think spray oil is the best thing since sliced bread because it's a controlled spray, it doesn't get goopy, it gives you that perfect mist for what we gotta do here. This is a grill pan, obviously, so not the kind of grill that has the flame shooting through. What I do is put my hand about 2 inches above, and if I can't hold my hand there for about 4 to 5 seconds, then I'm good. Another thing I'm looking for is a little smoke, and I've got both of those things right here. Grill is at the perfect temperature. My fish is oiled and seasoned. So what I'm looking for are for those kind of raised areas, and I'm gonna go down and away from me. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. So important. Don't mess with the grill, friends. Let the grill do its thing. You're getting heat from the bottom. The bottom of this fish needs to sear, almost needs to cauterize, get those grill marks in. What you can do is use your eyeballs. Again, lean on your senses. What I'm looking for is a color change from orange to kind of that grilled brown color, and that's gonna be the first indicator to see when it lifts up. And another thing is, there's only one presentation side on food. So I wanna nail a beautiful grill mark on one side, and you got 2 chances for this. If you don't get it here, you can get it on the other side. But I'm not always focused on fish having to be cooked 50% and 50% top and bottom. I wanna nail that grill mark on one side, and then I wanna get that temperature kind of medium to where just the salmon starts flaking apart. Because I've let that fish basically sear on the bottom, I can get in and it's not sticking, and I'm not getting a big oil slick on the bottom of the fish. And I like these grill spatulas a lot. I think they're the perfect thing because they're flexible and they get in. So watch, pull back, over, perfectly grilled salmon every single time. Boom. It's that simple, friends. I love this dish for a few reasons. When I was in my 20s and I was going to sushi school, part of the rituals of working in a restaurant is everyone takes a turn cooking family meal every week, all right? So although we were working on sushi for 12, 15 hours a day, I would look forward to family meal. There was one chef that I worked with who made this salmon misoyaki, which is a very home-style dish, and like I fell in love with it. We were playing with all these exotic ingredients, but you know what? The highlight of my week was when Chef would make salmon misoyaki. So I stole that from him, and he stole that from his grandmother, and I'm giving it to you now. So this is why I love this dish so much. So the way to check doneness is unscientific. It's a little more art than anything. I'm pressing down in the middle, and it should just give, right? It shouldn't push down, and it shouldn't be so firm and rock hard, which is telling me that this fish is just cooked through. And again, I'm going in with a fish spatula to wiggle it first, and if it wants to come up, it is done. So let's land these so we don't overcook them. That is perfect. And in case you were wondering why I didn't do 4 pieces, 4 is a bad luck number in a lot of Asian countries. Look it up, it's a cool little fun fact. So it's time to put it all together. I'm going with brown rice, but any grain will work here. If you're kind of going grainless, cauliflower rice or zoodles would even be really cool. So boom, a little kind of one side versus the other there. And then I'm gonna land my fish kind of over like it's swimming. It's kind of that art of plating. Let me plate this way on the plate. I'm gonna turn it towards you, and I just need to simply sauce this. What you wanna do, if the sauce has been hanging out for a little bit, guys, make sure you get a little stir on there. And if it's tightened up a little too much, add a little water or a mirin, either one works. And I'm gonna kind of just go right over the top and then over around the plate. Another thing you could do if you really like that kind of lacquering or that big time saucing is take a nice brush and get the brush in there and really kind of laminate that sauce in there. Oh man, that looks delicious. So important to get enough sauce for every bite of rice is what I like to do. And then for simple garnishes, I love sesame seeds. I think that looks beautiful. And then I always cut some scallions on the bias and just make a little bit of garnish there and on this side. That's amazing. That is salmon misoyaki. Last thing left to do, I mean, you know the last Tila rule of cooking is to taste your food. The perfect bite, in my opinion, is a good piece of salmon, smother that rice with sauce, and you gotta get a decent amount of scallion. I'm gonna crush that. I mean, that dish hits on so many happy levels. You've got kind of that delicious salmon taste. You got the sweetness from the sugar. You got that mirin, you got the miso that kind of ties it all together with savoriness. This is my idea of a perfect meal. So there you have it, friends, a homemade salmon misoyaki with, you know, grandma's sauce that we stole from my other chef, but now it's yours. Today I'm making a classic Cantonese dish which my grandma made for us all the time. Steamed fish with ginger and scallion. I'm talking about cooking the entire fish whole from head to tail, but it really isn't as intimidating as you think it is. Let's go. My favorite fish for this dish is striped bass. It's sustainably farmed, has a nice, sweet, flaky white meat, and is available just about anywhere in America. I've sold thousands of fish from this counter, so I know what fresh is. You're looking for clear eyes, nice red gills, and it should look wet to the touch. Thanks, man. Super important, Shaoxing. It's a fermented rice wine, has great flavor. If you can't get it, you can use sherry, but it's totally worth it because it's a great pantry item you'll use in so many other Chinese dishes. Dehydrated mushrooms are a totally different animal than their fresh counterparts. When reconstituted, they're super savory, hearty, and eat just like meat. So eating fish and fishing has been a big part of my family for a really long time. When I was about 5, my grandma took me out and taught me how to fish. And now that my daughter's 6, I'm teaching her how to fish. So you gotta learn how to fish and then you gotta learn how to cook the fish in my family. So I'm gonna show you one of my favorite fish dishes here. I've got the whole fish, it's gilled and gutted, of course. I'm just gonna pat the exterior and the interior dry. And I wanna score this fish, and what scoring does actually, since the fish is kind of thicker in some places and thinner in the others, scoring will make sure the fish cooks evenly in the oven. So I've scored one side. I'm just drawing kind of 45-degree lines, 3 of them, all the way down to the bone, and this fish is ready to be seasoned. So fish goes into the pan, and I'm gonna season it pretty generously on both sides and inside. A little salt. A little pepper, make sure to really kind of get into the scores, into the cavity. So in terms of knife work, I'm gonna start with these mushrooms. I've just put them in warm water to reconstitute, and now they get nice and kind of fleshy. So they eat totally different than fresh mushrooms. They're really meaty and they offer a lot of savoriness. So all I'm gonna do is slice them nice and thin. If you find that the stems are woody or a little too hard, feel free to cut them away and use them for another dish. So after my grandma taught me how to fish, I continued to fish. I actually spent most of my high school years working on a saltwater fishing boat, from becoming a deckhand to a boat cook. And to this day, one of my favorite things to do is still go fishing. All these ingredients are gonna go right into the pan and surround the fish and build layers of flavor. Just a few more ingredients, ginger. I'm really looking for the blades of grass cut on this ginger. So thin tiles become these really beautiful kind of blades of grass matchsticks. Ginger and fish are a real classic pair in Cantonese cuisine. My grandma always taught me that ginger helps kind of mask or absorb the fishiness of fish and leave the sweetness of fish there. Scallions, I'm just gonna take the tip and the root parts off, and I'm gonna cut these into, again, fine matchsticks to go onto the fish after I pull it out of the oven so I can run that really cool, hot, sizzling oil over them. So lastly, I'm gonna add the bok choy. These are really, really small bok choy, so if you get the larger ones, cut them down into kind of finger-sized pieces, but these are ready to just kind of snap in half and get added to the pan. Let me show you how to build the sauce. It starts with water. To that, add some chicken powder. This really is the secret to really great Chinese cooking. It's really similar to chicken bouillon, but it's a specific Chinese style. So if you find it at the Chinese market or product of China, that's the right stuff. We add this to a lot of things like stir fry and different sauces. A little bit of sugar. For the savoriness, I want a little thin soy sauce. And finally, a little bit of Shaoxing rice wine. Shaoxing rice wine smells and tastes a lot like sake. It adds a really nice aromatic quality to cooked foods, kind of like sherry. So if you can't get Shaoxing, don't worry, just use sherry. Last but never least, a little bit of sesame oil for that aroma. So the sauce is done, I'm gonna pour it over the fish and get it right into the oven. So I'm doing one layer of plastic to really kind of trap all the steam in. And then the next layer is foil to protect the plastic. I know what you're thinking. You're worried that the plastic is gonna burn, but no, chefs have been doing this for many, many years. As long as your oven's at 325 and you got the foil over the plastic, it's gonna be fine. I promise. So the last step for the steamed fish is that tableside trick using the oil crackle over the skin. It's pretty cool, check it out. So I'm gonna get a combination of 2 oils nice and hot. One is gonna be a high temperature neutral oil, like canola or grapeseed. And the second oil is gonna be sesame oil for its aromatic qualities. You wanna use a combination because the neutral oil has a very high smoke point. Sesame oil, it doesn't, but it has all the flavor. So together, they make a great sizzling oil. So while the oil comes to temp, I'm gonna pull the fish right out of the oven. Plastic intact. So fish is out of the oven, I removed the plastic and foil layer, and now I'm ready to do the scallion and sizzling oil. The way the scallion is reacting with the oil and all the fish, it creates this amazing aromatic quality. So it's time to taste. The sweetness of the fresh fish, the soy sauce, that scallion oil, the mushrooms, all that comes together to make an amazing bite. I'm gonna show you how to make, hands down, my favorite Vietnamese dish, Bánh Xèo. It's a simple, savory crepe that's light and delicious and crispy. What's up guys, it's Jet Tila here, and this is Ready Jet Cook, where I show you how to make my favorite Asian dishes from pantry to plate. But before we get this crepe started, take a second to subscribe. All set? All right, let's do this. Bánh Xèo means sizzling crepe, and before we can get sizzling, I need rice flour, I need fish sauce, and turmeric. All very important ingredients, and we're gonna use 2 of these right now to make the actual crepe batter. Starting with this rice flour. All this is if you took jasmine rice or white rice and ground it down into a very, very fine flour. So when you're making a batter, it makes a very, very crispy batter. Next, I am gonna use some all-purpose flour. To give it really great color, we're using turmeric. It's considered one of the world's superfoods, but when you dry it and powderize it, it creates this gorgeous kind of mustardy saffron color. Next, a little bit of cornstarch. So this crepe is gonna be nice and kind of spongy, but also crispy on the edges. Little bit of kosher salt. And these are my dries, and I like to get them all together before we start adding the liquids. Okay, so the wets, very simple. Good amount of coconut milk. And then finally, to give some bubbles and some flavor, I'm just putting a beer in there. Don't do that at home. That's a trained professional move. Look how beautiful that batter is. That is so gorgeous. Working this together until I get something thinner than an American pancake batter, but thicker than a French crepe batter. All right, because the flour molecules have to hydrate, I'm gonna set this aside for 15 to 30 minutes. So one of the hallmarks of Bánh Xèo is the crepe must have pork in it, and if you're feeling really lucky, a little bit of shrimp in it too. Pork belly traditionally is a really tough cut of pork. I'm gonna show you a great way to make this pork very tender very quickly. I like to buy it with the skin off because I can tenderize this pork belly, but the skin is so tough that even with my baking soda trick and boiling, the skin's still gonna be a little tough. So make sure to grab that pork belly that has no skin. So the pork belly sliced, I take some water, I bring it up to a boil, and I'm just gonna add baking soda. Baking soda coats this pork. It doesn't allow the muscle fibers to bond together, right? It actually keeps them apart. I'm gonna let this pork boil for about 10 to 15 minutes. All right, so I'm gonna show you how to make nuoc chum. It is that beautifully sweet and tangy, spicy dipping sauce that's used for just about all Vietnamese dishes, like egg rolls, spring rolls, and it's really, really simple to make. So let me do the liquid portion first. I'm gonna whisk together sugar, lime juice, water, rice vinegar. So I'm just building that 5 flavor, hot, sour, salty, sweet, savory type of flavor profile. Vietnamese fish sauce. So this sauce is called nuoc chum. Fish sauce by itself is called nuoc mum. I think it's always fun to learn all the terms in the language of the cuisine you're cooking. And now we're gonna add chilies and garlic to actually pop this nuoc chum even more. For garlic, I'm just laying my knife flat, pounding it flat, both cloves, and I'm just giving it a nice tight mince. Thai chilies or bird's eye chilies, I've got 1 to 2 are gonna be plenty hot, so you will be tasting and feeling the spice on this chili. So I'm just gonna float that right into there as well. And then I like to kind of add a little bit of mouth feel, some texture. And I'm gonna be doing carrots and daikon radish. And the way I like to julienne is to square off the carrot on two sides. I don't really need to peel it. And then I'm just gonna slice very thin tiles, like 1/8 to 1/4 inch tiles, and then lay those on top of each other, slice very thin juliennes. So a little bit of the carrots in there. And then daikon, same thing. Daikon is a big, long radish. I'm just gonna take about a 2-inch section and then find my nice thin tiles. Nice thin slices now. All right, let's stir this together, take a taste. It's got a really nice sweetness to it. It's backed up by a good amount of salt. And just that kind of earthiness of the garlic is awesome. And I like to cut scallions in half, line up those halves, and I'm just gonna do straight sliced scallions. Let's put that on the plate. This is how I like to cut an onion. I square off the top, and I just cut the root end off the bottom. I go North Pole to South Pole, and that's when I peel. All right, so these onions are gonna sit in the pan and be totally enveloped by the crepe. I could either do slices, like so, which are gonna kind of mellow and sit in the pan and get nice and sweet. Or if you want as well, you could do what I like to call the lyonnaise, which is cutting along the ribs, always facing the center of the onion. So that'll go into there. All right, I'm gonna pull the pork out of the bath. The crepe batter is rested. I've got all my mise en place. This is my pan of choice. It's an 8 to 9 inch coated or non-stick pan, and that's gonna really help keep that crepe from sticking, but still create a crunchy crepe. Checking my consistency, yes, that looks really good. Not too thick, not too thin. And I'm gonna add some scallions into there now. So a word about shrimp. These crepes have pork and shrimp suspended in them. I'm using a smaller shrimp today. So if you're using a really large shrimp, like a 21, 25 or jumbo, split them in half lengthwise so they don't crack up your crepe when you go to fold them. All right, let's fire this. So first thing I'm gonna do is get a decent amount of oil. All right, so I'm gonna start with a few pieces of pork belly. And again, I don't need a lot because I'm gonna make a bunch of crepes with this recipe. A good amount of onion. And since the pork is already pre-cooked, I can go ahead and add my shrimp. If you're starting with raw, then let that pork kind of catch up before you add your shrimp, because you want all the proteins to kind of be at that same place in cook. So I'm gonna let my onions brown up just a little bit for that maximum sweetness. Going in with my batter, I'm gonna grab all those ingredients in my batter and suspend them. So I've got the batter in, and now I'm gonna tilt. And just like making an omelet, guys, you wanna spread this batter out so you get maximum coverage on the pan, but also make sure that you're spread out enough so you have a nice even layer all the way through. So this is when I'm gonna lower the heat a bit. So as you can see, I've got perfect spread. The bottom is starting to brown slightly, but still can lift off. That is the point where now we need to add the bean sprouts and cook the top. And the way we're gonna do that is, I like to add the bean sprouts in kind of on one side, because I'm gonna be folding this in half. And then we're gonna put a lid on it, and that steam, as you can see, is gonna get captured and now steam the top. You hear that? That's the sao, guys. Sao in bánh xèo is Vietnamese for that. Shh. So let this sao for a minute. To eat this, we've got a Vietnamese greens plate, we've got the nuoc cham, and we've got some rice papers, all right? The practice of wrapping food in parcels of either vegetables or rice paper is a real indigenous Vietnamese practice. Vietnam was ruled by China for 1,000 years and then French influence for a while, but this beautiful method of wrapping things in herbs predates all that. So my basic greens plate is this: green leaf lettuce, mint is easy to find, cilantro is easy to find. I'm using perilla here that kind of has that Japanese shiso flavor, and then I'm using a little bit of cucumber. How you do it is up to you, but I want you to have at least 2 or 3 of these. And then I'm gonna show you how to eat this with rice paper after I'm done. Speaking of, I think it's time to plate our bánh xèo. Visually what I'm looking for, the bean sprouts have wilted a bit, the crepe is solid but still sliding, and I'm looking for a nice GBD, a golden brown and delicious. So now, I'm going to bring the bánh xèo here. So what I do is I like to slide it halfway off and then fold it right over, just like that. A few ways you can present it. You could either send it thusly on a plate, but if you want to decorate and put the greens plate next to it, I think it's a really nice touch. In Vietnam on the streets, you really see these bánh xèo vendors having like 10, 12 pans all going at the same time. It's pretty amazing. Certain parts of Vietnam eat it with a rice paper, but it's totally up to you. You could just use veggies. But I soak the rice papers in warm water until I feel them just start folding over on themselves. I'll drain and let them carry over on my cutting board. That means I'm gonna let them finish hydrating here. And after about 10 seconds, you're gonna see they're gonna be nice, perfectly sticky, and ready to eat. Check it out. It's gotten nice, soft, tender, and chewy. I usually will take a piece of rice paper, a nice section of the bánh xèo right there, ready to go. I'm gonna crack off a little bit of the greens. I'm gonna lay the bánh xèo right in the middle there. Fold that over into a nice little package. I'll take the nuoc cham, and if you have your own nuoc cham, you could do the dip. But if you don't want to cross-contaminate, just do a nice little drizzle. Cheers, everybody. The savoriness of the pork and the shrimp married with the crispiness and the cooling of the bean sprouts. And then you've got the herbs, then you've got the crispiness, and then the nuoc cham. This really is an outstanding Vietnamese experience. Guys, I really hope you enjoyed making this with me. Make it at home, take lots of photos, tag us in those photos. Thanks so much for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Teriyaki salmon, but not that goopy comes out of the bottle teriyaki sauce. I'm gonna show you how the OGs do it, and it's gonna be way more delicious. Let's get into it. Before we get started, I had a bunch of sides ready to go because the fish cooks quickly. I steamed up some rice. I've steamed up some bok choy, which just means take the bok choy, steam it over water for about 4 to 5 minutes and let it kind of hang out. And then I've already toasted my sesame seeds. You can buy toasted sesame seeds, but I'm going fancy and doing it myself. And all that means is sesame seeds into a dry nonstick pan, and you want to toast it for about 5 minutes, constantly turning it. Let's spend some time on the salmon. It can come from the store in so many forms, full fillets, part fillets. This is about 2 pounds of a fillet. It can also come in steaks. So no matter how it comes from the store, these are the things I want you to look for, all right? You want the salmon to be nice and kind of orange pink in color, all right? And you know what? It's usually covered in plastic. It's okay, don't get brutal, but just kind of push down on it nice and gently like this. And if it springs back, good sign of freshness right there. If it looks moist in the package, also a really nice sign of freshness. If you can flip it over, this one is actually scaled. So there's little scales that protect the skin of the fish. If it comes scaled like this, all you need to do is pat it dry, like I'm going to do right now, and it's pretty much ready to use. If it does have scales on it, I would actually take the skin off because you don't want to be eating those scales. If you're lucky enough to have a meat department with a fishmonger, you can just say, hey, please scale this for me, or actually skin it off for me. I'm working with 2 pounds of filet salmon. This already has the pin bones removed. I want to show you a really fun way to turn this boring symmetrical block of fish into something that looks beautiful and more plateable that I would use in a restaurant. So instead of cutting downwards, kind of in perpendicular blocks, which kind of makes it look like frozen fish blocks, all I want you to do is take the knife, put it on an angle, what I call a bias, and watch what happens just by sliding the knife through. There's my first piece. Flip that over. And look at that curved side. So I'm gonna do this a few more times. And this is what us chefs do in the restaurants to create really beautiful kind of plateable pieces of salmon. And by cutting it on an angle, you have this kind of beautiful, almost like cascade piece of fish. So just by simply applying a little bit of bias slice, I've created really beautiful plateable pieces of salmon. Another really great rule in the kitchen is season everything. I know teriyaki sauce has a lot of great flavor, but to boost the flavor of the actual fish, you want to season it. And I don't mean super aggressively, but salt and pepper are basically flavor lifters. They really help bring out the natural flavor of the salmon. So season both sides. And we're going to create a glaze in the pan. So teriyaki just simply means grill glaze, right? Yaki means grill, teri means glaze. So back in the day, they would marinate their meat or fish in the actual sauce and then grill or roast it off. This is like a new school teriyaki, which is more of a Hawaiian style teriyaki. So we're actually gonna build the sauce in the pan. Let me show you how. For teriyaki, you want to use a wide skillet, and that's going to allow the sauces to kind of reduce into a glaze. We're going to heat this up. I want to put just a little bit of neutral oil. And neutral oil is high temperature oil, peanut, canola. If you're fancy, avocado, grapeseed, basically an oil that can get really hot that doesn't really give a lot of flavor because I want to taste all of these flavors. I'm gonna let that heat up and I'm just looking for wispy white smoke. It's very important that your salmon or any fish hits the pan as dry as possible because that's gonna give you an amazing crust. You always want that brown kind of crust. And the way to get that brown crust is to get your protein as dry as possible. Single-use towel, that's just a fancy word for paper towel, right off the roll. And the drier that is, the browner and more beautiful this crust is gonna be. We're gonna start with the meat side down on the pan because that's gonna be the presentation side. I really love this kind of next generation cast iron because it's pre-seasoned, naturally nonstick, and it really will hold heat and give you a beautiful crust here on any protein, not just fish. All right, this is the waiting game. It's worth the wait, I promise. You always want the oil to be the indicator and you want it to just slightly start wisping and that's gonna tell me I'm ready to go. To build teriyaki sauce, 4 items. Really simple, old school, all right? Man, I'm gonna get really nerdy really quick. You know what? Sake, most people call this rice wine. That is actually not true, by the way, because wine is usually a fermented fruit juice, right? Like grapes. This is actually brewed from rice. So technically, I would call this a beer if you want to be really technical. And in Japan, this is not called sake. This is called nihonshu. Sake is really just a general word for booze. So if I'm like, yo, may I have a sake? They're like, what do you want? Because sake just means alcohol. This technically is brewed rice, so this would be called nihonshu. Wow, that was nerdy. I'm so sorry, but whatever. You only learn that stuff here. This is called mirin. This is basically the nihonshu with a little sugar in it. So it's a sweetened rice alcohol, and then we're just gonna use a nice dark soy sauce. Really simple, and I'm gonna thicken that all up together with a little bit of slurry, and we're almost there. Pan is hot, that's my indicator. That's what I'm looking for right there. This is how I want you to apply your fish. Down and away. That keeps you from getting burned, all right? And because the pan is smoking hot, the fish is gonna sear, basically cauterize, and it's going to not stick. It will start by sticking, but what's gonna happen is it's going to sear and lift up on its own. So let's give each piece of fish a little room, okay, to work so I don't create too much steam. And I want you to lay the salmon down flesh side because that's going to be your presentation side. When it turns over and it's nice and brown, I want to plate with that side up. With cast iron, because it heats up so well and efficiently, feel free to kind of tilt that oil and get it under all those pieces of fish. Now the best way to manipulate fish in the pan without breaking it up is a fish spatula. Let me show you what I'm talking about. It's this guy right here. Very thin, flexible to kind of get under those fish. You don't want a very rigid, wide spatula because you don't want to hurt the fish. All right, this is an art. There's actual station in a kitchen brigade, which is the fish station. And it's important to really let the fish tell you when it's ready to turn. And I want you just to kind of like take that first piece and see how I'm just kind of wiggling the fish. And I'm asking it, are you ready to move? Because if I force it now, it's not going to be this beautiful seared brown. It's right.
So that's why this fish spatula is so crucial. And you're allowed to peek, by the way. And I'm gonna just let it be, right? I'm gonna respect my fish. Another really great tip is there's only one presentation side to food. So I'm really trying to nail this flesh side browning wise, right? It's not about 50-50, it's about whatever it takes to get color on that side, because once I flip it over, all these sauces are really gonna help cook the fish all the way through. So all we're trying to do is nail that beautiful brown crust. So here we go, let's try it. Drum roll, please. Oh, whew. All right, I get to keep my reputation. Second piece, looks awesome. Third, pretty darn good. And it's that last piece because it went down later. I'm gonna let the oil get under it. Are you ready? Can we do this? Let's do that, here we go. Beautiful. So fish spatulas totally worth the investment. They're not that expensive, by the way. All right, so the fish is seared on the top side. I'm gonna get rid of any of these crispy bits because I don't want them to burn. And now I'm gonna actually build the sauce, and the sauce is gonna help cook the fish through. Lower your heat down. I went from a very high sear now to a medium temperature because I'm gonna add the liquids. Sake or nihonshu is alcohol. So when you're pouring sake into the pan, make sure your pan is not ripping and always pour away from you like this. Watch, I'm just gonna put the sauce away from you. So I always wanna pour away, making sure I don't ignite that. If you're really nervous about it, turn off the heat, let the pan cool a little bit, then pour your sake in, then turn the heat back on. Sake's in. That's gonna give us a beautiful aroma. The next ingredient is going to be mirin, and that's kind of that sweetened sake. So that's gonna give you a beautiful sweetness and start to build that glaze. My kids love to spoon a ton of sauce over. You can always double this sauce recipe into the pan. That's not going to make this any more or less salty. Does that make sense? It's just gonna give you more sauce to sop up that beautiful fish. The last seasoning is soy sauce. The next thing will be actually thickening. And check it out, I'm pouring it right onto the fish. I'm not trying to pour it to the side. So, teriyaki sauce. If you wanna get fancy here, pineapple juice, pretty fancy, just a little bit of grated ginger is also fancy and totally acceptable. We've made this sauce in terms of flavoring, right? Now we need to turn this into a glaze, and that's gonna happen by way of cornstarch slurry. Cornstarch is magic, right? It thickens everything. And how it does it is it distributes itself in the sauce, and then at 160 to 180 degrees, it actually swells up and gelatinizes. The only way to get the cornstarch in and not clumpy is to introduce it in some cold water first, and this is called a slurry. The liquid is simmering, and that tells me that it's about 212. That's what the boiling point of water is. Now, what I really want to do is get this cornstarch whisked in pretty quickly. I want to distribute the cornstarch in the sauce. And you're gonna see these bubbles actually turn tighter, if you notice, and that just means the cornstarch is starting to activate. And you never have to actually flip the fish over again because you nailed that presentation side. And I'm just gonna stir this now. Okay, so I'm waiting for the cornstarch to activate. You actually start to see it go from kind of opaque or cloudy to become this beautiful kind of glaze. I'm there. So let's turn off the heat, and I'm gonna show you how to plate this up beautifully. So the only garnish we're gonna need are the scallions. Line up your roots, cut them right off. Line up the tops. Find that place where you can cut them and get a nice clean cut. Whites and greens get separated. And then I'm gonna find like the pretty side of the scallion and again, cut it into a nice thin bias. I like to use whites and greens. There's no reason to kind of favor one over the other. So that's gonna be hanging out, ready to go. Bok choy wise, you know what? Let's figure it out. I'm looking at my bok choy and I'm looking at my plate. What do I wanna do? These are pretty aggressive. So let's just cut these. Does a half work? Half works, right? If you wanna do quarters, we can do quarters too. So don't worry about it. I really like bok choy as the accompaniment. It's a nice bitter green, and it really counterbalances the sweetness of this dish very well. So I'm gonna just cut these and leave them hanging, and then put the fish down, and then we'll figure out what looks nice. If you're doing individual rice bowls, like I do at home for my kids, you can actually just make individual bowls of rice, put a piece of salmon, bok choy, and sauce it down. All right, here we go. I want to move the product basically closer to my serving area so you can kind of see how I build this all together. Bok choy base. Let's get the salmon down. Nice and gentle. Of course, need tons of sauce. We'll garnish. We're gonna do the sesame seeds. Of course, the scallions. So there it is, friends. Salmon teriyaki, roasted bok choy, white rice, seared crispy salmon, beautiful sweet teriyaki glaze. This is kind of my idea of the perfect meal to hang out with my family. Thanks so much for cooking with me, and we'll see you next time.
Today I'm making Kung Pao Shrimp. Kung Pao originated in Southwest China and is pretty popular in America. You've seen it with chicken, but I'm gonna show you a way better version using shrimp. Come on. When buying shrimp, make sure you buy raw, peeled, and deveined. It's gonna save you a lot of headache. And make sure you're getting at least medium to large shrimp. Don't buy those little baby ones. Thank you. So for Kung Pao, I'm gonna use 2 kinds of chilies. I've got my dried chilies de árbol. I'll show you how to toast them back in the kitchen. And I'm using chili garlic sauce, also known as sambal olek, which is a Malaysian or Indonesian chili paste. It's got a phenomenal heat, a balance of acidity, and it's got a nice garlic flavor. I'm gonna show you and my wife, Allie, how to put these together to make great Kung Pao. Allie, I know this is one of your favorite stir-fry dishes and the one that really kind of cemented what stir-fry is all about,
Yeah,
right?
It's a great introductory dish to stir-fry.
Stir-fry, as we all know, is a few groups of things put in the pan in the right order, in the right time to create deliciousness.
How do you decide the order? That's always my first question. Do you
Well,
put the protein in first? Do you put the chilies in first?
I didn't tell you this, but I'm actually gonna ask you to cook today. So, yeah, for real, don't freak out. So don't worry. For me, it's all about aromatics first, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut up some aromatics, and then usually protein, and then veg. Whatever takes longer to cook is gonna go in sooner, right? So by the end of the dish, everything is cooked perfectly, and it meets into a perfect stir fry. But can you toast some chilies?
Yeah, just don't put too much pow in my Kung Pao, okay?
You are the queen of cheesy liners, so prepare yourself. Let's start a counter. Bing, there's your first one. Right there. It's not about blistering these chilies. If you toast chilies or any spices in a dry pan, it opens up the flavors and, in my opinion, gets them more aromatic, right? It will increase a little spice, but I think it just increases flavor. Knife prep. For this dish, it's super simple, and I pulled out Grandma's cleaver. We're starting with garlic. Check it out. You just pow, boom. Oh, there's pow again.
Oh, Kung Pao.
Pow, there you go. I'm going flat, and then from flat, I'm just gonna do a little rough chop. And that's it. I don't
Show off.
like, no, not at all.
I don't like over processing garlic because I don't want it to burn in that pan.
What do you look for in a toasted chili?
You know what?
What are the doneness signs?
That's a perfect question. I think you're looking for the skins to deepen in color. They're gonna go from kind of beautiful bright red to dark red, and I would pull them at dark red. After that, it's gonna look a little burnt. So yeah, just keep them moving. And you're gonna smell almost like a fruitiness, almost like what white pepper smells like, if that makes any sense.
So this one's starting
Yeah,
to...
so yeah, flip that over
Okay.
and you're good to go.
But the seeds will make it more spicy, right?
Absolutely, for sure. So if you're worried about that, you could actually buy seedless, stemless chilies. But what fun is anti-spicy spice? Like, what fun is not spicy spice? I would just use less and try to control that. All right, you're good. You're chilling for a minute. All right, and I'm gonna take you through the veg prep. So stir fry is really about super high heat, so don't cut anything too small. On onions, I'm just gonna do 1-inch dice, keeping it consistent, just like that.
So if I'm helping cook, does that mean I get out of dishwashing duty?
Well, how about this? This is kind of the perfect dish though for families that, A, we're on the run, right? Kids, busy, you don't want to do a lot of dishes, and everything's in one pan, so, but the answer is no, absolutely not. No, I'm kidding. Look, in our house though, when you cook, I do the dishes.
Right.
And when I cook, you do the dishes.
Right.
Right? So I'm taking both sides off of the bell pepper, I'm flattening out the bell pepper and just rolling the bell pepper over my knife. And then I take off the stem, and that's how you have perfect bell peppers. Isn't that cool?
So you're using the entire bell pepper.
As much as
Nothing to
possible,
waste.
not the seed pod, but as much as possible. And here's that batonette, which is kind of like a French fry cut. And although these two look like they're different sizes, they'll kind of cook up at the same rate. Okay, last thing I gotta do is just green onions. And I don't wanna overthink this. Most people will do green onions as a garnish, kind of like nice and thin. I'm gonna flip it a little bit and go wider. So I want 1 to 2 inch pieces with a slight bias. And that's prep.
Sometimes it's confusing though because you never know which parts of the green onion to use or not.
Yeah.
How do you decide?
You know what? Everything's edible except for the roots. And that's actually good for stocks or for compost. You know what you could do if you really want to do this methodically? Why don't you line up your board or your mise en place by order of things going so you don't have to think. So if I give you this line goes in first, which is the garlic, the nuts, and the chilies, your next line will be shrimp, your third line will be veggies, then you don't even have to think about it.
Perfect.
I've always taught people that stir fry is the culinary equivalent of a roller coaster ride. Once you start going, you can't like start crying and like
I can't panic.
you can't get off the ride, right? You're committed, but it's okay to be committed because all your prep is ready to go. Hey, guess what?
What?
All your prep is ready to go. Why don't we start cooking? Your only rule as a stir fry cook is don't let anything stick, which means take your paddle and keep it moving. Keep it moving so it doesn't stick. All right, you ready?
Wait, keep it what?
Yeah, well, you're about to find out. High temperature neutral oil, so peanut, canola, grapeseed. Shrimp cooks really quickly, so we're gonna really balance shrimp and vegetables because they're gonna cook about the same time. We're looking for white, wispy smoke, and I see that already, so.
So just right in the pan?
Yeah, because I'm not worried about any of these things overcooking. I'm gonna do garlic for you, so you don't
Okay,
get garlicky
great.
hands. How much I love you.
Such a gentleman, I
Yeah,
love it.
I don't wanna screw up your
Thank you for
neck.
doing garlic for me.
You don't have to do your
So I
mess
don't,
up.
it's really because the kids want me to smell like garlic later.
No, that's not true at all. I don't have to pay for more manicures. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So remember your mantra. Yeah, keep it moving. Just keep everything moving. Now, the next thing is gonna be your shrimp. So I'm gonna show you one more trick. Grab me that oil, sprig a little bit in there, spray it perfect. Now, by pre-oiling this, I'm not worried about it sticking to the pan.
What if it starts to burn? Then what?
If you feel the heat's getting away from you, add the next ingredient sooner.
Okay.
Because most of your ingredients come from the refrigerator, you know they're cold and that'll cool the pan down. I'm putting in your veggies now, serving the green onion. You're gonna go right to sauce. First thing you're gonna do is oyster sauce. Right around here, a good amount.
How much?
Enough to make a nice brown sauce. So you got about a 1/4 cup in there. Now, chili's up to you. You have some sambal there. Go for it. Get that stirred up together. And we've got a really great base stir fry. Now we want to make sauce. People love sauce to kind of eat with rice, especially our kids. I'm going to give you an assist. I'm going to take that cornstarch. I'm going to marry the cornstarch into the chicken stock.
Would this be like a slurry?
Very good.
Aha!
Wow, culinarian.
See?
Now just roll that right into there.
You have like a lot of nice brown bits on the bottom of this
Yeah,
pan.
so start scraping them off. We also call this deglazing. So you see how you've deglazed the pan there?
Oh, I love it.
You want it more spicy? I know, that's just me.
Hit me. No.
No.
I really, I want to be able to actually taste the food.
Do you know how you're gonna know if you have enough heat? I'm gonna taste it. It's real simple. While you're cooking, you always have a few minutes to kind of check.
Smells amazing.
Wow, that is really good. Turn your heat off and throw your scallions in there now.
Got it.
And I'm putting these in last because I don't want to over wilt them. I want them to still have some nice bite. And how about a pinch of pepper? Literally 2 to 3 drops of sesame oil, literally, because you want just the aroma of sesame. Perfect, yep.
So how do you know when it's done?
A few things. One, you're cooking shrimp. So we know that shrimp should turn opaque and pink. 2, is the glaze nice and tight enough to coat rice, and it looks good to me. That's how you know it's done. So why don't you kill your heat, and we're ready to go. That looks phenomenal. Look at that.
Looks so good.
What did you think, honestly? So I know you've watched me make it a lot, and you actually made it this time.
Well, I mean, it's a good learning experience, right? You learn stir fry, you learn how to do things in a proper order so things don't burn.
Yeah. Was it hard or was it easy?
It was easy with your organization. It was easy, and it's kind of a nice, like, in a sense, one-pot meal because there's only one dish for you to wash.
That's right. Now, I mean, if you're kind of giving advice to people who've never made it before, any kind of key advice from you?
Just make sure you're organized before you start to cook. I think that's the best advice.
And then taste right before you serve. I think that is super key.
Well, always taste your food.
Right? Perfect accompaniment would be white rice or brown rice. We're doing white rice here. So there you have it, Kung Pao Shrimp, Jet and Alley style. Should we take a taste?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Wow, you actually
So
cooked for
good.
me. Savory, a little bit of sour, like sweet and sour style, like Kung Pao style. Good amount of heat for me. Was it too spicy for you?
No, actually, I think we could have done a bump more pow.
Yeah, there you go. Pretty good for the kids, though. I think they would
This
totally
is perfect
eat
for the
this.
kids, yeah, not too spicy.
Wow, you cooked for me. I'm glad we got this on film.
Today, I'm making a Cantonese classic you're gonna find on almost every Chinese restaurant menu, salt and pepper shrimp. It's super delicious, and I'm gonna show you just how easy this dish is to make at home. Plus, I'm gonna add a side of vegetable fried rice. What's happening, guys? I am Jet Tila, and this is Ready Jet Cook, where I show you how to make some of my favorite Asian dishes from pantry to plate. I'm starving. Let's go. Okay, I need that, and I need that. All right, friends, you are basically looking at the 2 superheroes of stir fry. So chicken powder, although it's called chicken powder, it doesn't read in the pan as chicken. No, it adds basically a flavor boost that pops all of your stir fry. It's not the same as chicken bouillon. It's formulated for Chinese food and makes incredible stir fry. So important, in fact, I call it chicken power in my kitchen. So use it in all of your stir fries. Oyster sauce is the soul of creating brown sauces for stir fries. So in the past, they've told us, soy sauce. No, oyster sauce has savoriness, has sweetness. It is the soul of stir fry. These two are stir fry superheroes. So for fried rice, day-old rice is always going to play easy in the wok. It won't stick, it's easy to cook. We're gonna need 4 cups of cooked rice, which means 2 cups of uncooked rice. I prefer jasmine, personally. I think it's got a nice fragrance. As for the shrimp, yes, I'm using peel-on, head-on shrimp because I think it's delicious, but if you can't get your mind around eating peels and peeling shrimp, feel free just to use kind of medium or large peeled and deveined shrimp. I'm always looking for kind of clear eyeballs and nice kind of clean ocean smell. You're gonna be fine, trust me. All right, so let's get all our chopping out of the way first. This is kind of a workflow, if you've cooked with me a lot, you should get into because it actually makes your life a lot faster. We're gonna knock out all the vegetables, put them on separate plates, and then we'll get into the cook because Chinese food is really kind of 90% prep, 10% fire. All right, so first let's dice an onion, and I'll always, as you know, do the top, the back, cut in between, and I like to peel. So once you're here, I'm gonna find that rainbow. Don't cut the onion all the way through. Always leave a little piece connected. That way, when you do dice, the whole onion doesn't fall apart. A really great tip I've got for you is instead of arranging 1,000 little bowls full of diced whatever or sauce, try to just bank or mise en place everything onto plates because that's gonna make your life a lot easier. Carrots.
top, the bottoms, and then again, anything really wide, cut into 4 inches. And you know, I want a little variation here, so why don't I do like half coins for the carrots? All right, for ginger's kind of a fun one, right? So I like to kind of break off the fingers to get that main piece of ginger, square that piece off so it sits up straight, and then watch what I do with the back of my knife. I'm just applying a little bit of pressure, peeling the piece of ginger. If you're comfortable with the back of the knife, then start moving to the edge of the knife. And it actually will get the job done a lot faster that way. You can do 2 sides in a matter of seconds. It's that Jet Tila cutting rhyme. A tile becomes a slice, and a slice becomes a dice. So first thing I'm gonna do is square it off. I'm gonna cut, 1/8 inch tiles here. I like to lay them all on top of each other and then bang them out all at the same time. 1/8 inch tiles becomes 1/8 inch slices. And for salt and pepper shrimp, I'm gonna want something on the diced side, so I'm gonna gather all these tiles, and I've just kind of rough minced my ginger. Simple. All right, scallions. Big question I always get is, do I use the whites or the greens? Dude, use it all. My grandma would be freaking out if I wasted any part of this. For the salt and pepper shrimp, I want a smaller slice because what we're trying to do is create a crust, in essence, to crust the shrimp. These small slices are gonna blend with our spice mix and really adhere to the shrimp really well. And on the other side of things, for the fried rice, I could get a little larger, so we're gonna do an angled bias slice and make them a little larger because we want them to stand up in the fried rice. All right, done deal. And again, before you start to deal with like raw protein, it's just so much easier to get all your knife work out in one. Jalapeno pepper, we're gonna do the stem. If these are really fat, I might cut them in half, but they're not. So I'm just gonna cut nice thin rings, knowing they're gonna adhere to that spice mix. You never see an Asian chili, ever. Unless you're in a foofy, fancy French restaurant that's making Asian food. You know what? My grandmas and the chefs I've worked with would never seed a chili. Okay, garlic. I'm gonna need garlic for both dishes. So what I'll do, since I need a lot, is I'm gonna cut off the root side so these garlic cloves can pop out. With the roots off, just give them a nice flat smash, and the cloves will pop right out. I'm totally okay with peeled garlic, but I wanted to show you the technique. On top of that, I think my culinary producers just want to torture me. Thanks, guys. Loving you. Fun. I'll be smelling like garlic for days. Okay, rough chop. Don't overthink this, especially using a wok, because the wok gets to 400 degrees, and you don't want to over-process your garlic. Okay, a wee bit for fried rice, and the other part is going to be for salt and pepper shrimp. Bell pepper. So see the stem and you see the back? I'm gonna make my tiles, that first tile with the top, and if I've done my job right, check that out. Stem pops right out, okay? I'll do a tile off the bottom, and now find the tile sides, stay inside, make a quarter turn, and I wanna try to cut that seed pod out all in one, just like so. Yellow, same thing. Boom, boom. And then I'm gonna make a giant tile with the body and then cut it into smaller tiles. Vegetable fried rice. I mean, let's think about this, right? I'm getting a variation of knife cuts here, and I want the rice to kind of be prominent, so I'm gonna leave these cuts on the smaller side. So again, guys, tile, slice, dice. And we are in a good spot there. Some reds, some yellows, and we are in business. Okay, mise en place. Done. I mean, that's how fast your knife work can be, knocking it out all in one. Piles of beautiful cut vegetables and herbs, and this basically just saved us 10 little bowls, and those little bowls is what makes my wife really mad at me in the kitchen when she has to kind of clean up if I'm cooking. All right, so let's get started with the vegetable fried rice, veggies, rice, oil. I got my tools. It's all about mise en place. Fancy French word, but it's so critical. It just means everything must be in its place, because fried rice, like any stir fry, is a culinary equivalent to a roller coaster ride. Once this thing is at 500 degrees and ripping, you can't get off the ride and start crying and get freaked out. We just gotta get rolling. Okay, pan is hot, mise en place set. Eggs are the secret to very fluffy fried rice. The egg will coat the rice and make it super light, keeps you from using a lot of oil.
All right, first thing is gonna be a little oil. Next, aromatics, and in this case, it's gonna be the garlic. And I'm gonna do the onion as well. Let's get those kind of translucent, get those fragrant. This next part is a dance. We gotta go egg and rice right afterwards, because you want the egg to be still wet. And the whole idea is to smash the rice into the egg. You want full coating here. It's really magic because the egg covers the rice. It protects it from sticking to the pan. It gives it this almost like lightness and body to it. And once I season it, the egg is protein. And the little bit of fat in the eggs is really gonna pick up more kind of savory flavor. All right, vegetables. Got my carrots, got my bell peppers, and I'm gonna save my scallions for the end. I don't wanna overcook those. I just want you to use this recipe as a base for your favorite vegetables and proteins. As long as you get the order right, it's always gonna work out deliciously. Very bad juju to break rice in the Asian culture. So whenever I see these rice balls or these little pieces of rice that don't want to play ball, I use the back of the spatula and work them apart. Don't break rice. All right, I'm in the seasoning portion of this. So firstly, salt. I like to use soy, but just a little bit. And oyster sauce really kind of is the quintessential Chinese seasoning because it's got the savory, the sweet. It's got everything in it. Again, don't weigh down your fried rice with too much. A tiny bit of sugar. And for me, fried rice takes white pepper. White pepper to me has almost like a floral quality to it. And I'm seasoned. That's really it for me. And again, if you look at my fried rice, it doesn't look like I spilled a gallon of soy sauce in there. I still can recognize every other ingredient. And I'm just looking for a balance in colors, putting all those flavors together. And because I still need to make my salt and pepper shrimp, I'm gonna kill the heat here, garnish with half my scallions, and I'll save the other half for later. And yo, I'm in business. I mean, this is perfect for me. All right. Fried rice done, friends. Let's keep it nice and warm. So salt and pepper shrimp mise en place, as you can see here. I've got my shrimp, got my veggies, big old bowl of cornstarch, and can't fire this without a wok. So let's get that hot. This is kind of another dance act where we're gonna coordinate a lot of things happening at the same time. These shrimp have been rinsed and cleaned. I've left a lot of the moisture on them because I'm going to be dredging them really quickly and frying them. First thing I need to do is make the magic spice mix. So in a bowl, first thing we'll do is salt, and of course our chicken powder, and then I've got a little bit of white pepper, and then a wee bit of sugar. If you find yourself falling in love with salt and pepper anything, because you can salt pepper pork chops, chicken, whatever, make this spice mix times 10, put it in an airtight container, and just always have it handy. So that is ready to go. So next step is going to be frying up the shrimp. And again, tail on, shell on, head on. So I've got frying oil at about 350, 365, and this is gonna happen quickly. So as you can see, the shrimp, because they're wet, is picking up all that cornstarch. I'm not gonna knock that much off because I want that to create a crispy crust. Now, I'm not trying to cook these shrimp too far. I just want the exteriors very crispy, but the inside still moist. So this, depending on the size of the shrimp, could take just, I don't know, 30 seconds to 1 minute. Don't overcook these shrimp. And do them in batches because you're cooling down the oil as you throw them in there. With my cooling rack ready, I'm waiting for the cornstarch to just brown up a little bit so I can check them with a spider and let them roll just a little while longer while I start my second batch. Every Sunday as a kid, my family would gather at the Chinese Cantonese restaurant and do what we call turntable Chinese. Come on, you've had to have grown up at a turntable Chinese restaurant. And there were always staples on the table. Salt and pepper shrimp was an absolute staple. And it was almost like a rite of passage because the young kids were always like, ew, I can't eat the shrimp with the peel and the head on. So the parents would peel them off for you. And as you grow up and as you graduate, you start to figure out, yo, this isn't so bad. Your grandparents and your parents and your uncles would be like, oh, look at you, Jet, you're growing up. You learned how to eat the skin and the head and the whole deal. If you're totally freaked out by this head-on business, just get peeled and deveined shrimp, do exactly the same thing, and you will be good to go. So I'm about 3/4 done with frying shrimp. I'm gonna land them on my rack as I churn on this wok and get it really hot. My scrimps are cooked. They're ready for their next cooking. If you happen to have any delay between the first cook and the second cook, just pop these in a warm oven, like a 200-degree oven, while you're setting up your wok station. And that'll keep them nice and crispy. The wok is hot. I'm just gonna pull some oil from the frying side. It's got all that shrimpy flavor in it. And we're gonna start our aromatics in here. And what I mean by that is the garlic, the ginger, and some of the chilies. I wanna get that on the crispy side, slightly brown, then we're gonna marry our shrimp in there. It's a common technique to do this double fry situation. So check it out. I've got all that deliciousness crusted on there, the garlic, the ginger, the chilies, and it's absorbed it all. So I'm gonna take a little more oil now because I need the shrimp to have some oil on it for the magic dust. And I'm gonna toss to get the dust on there. So I'm using white pepper for a few reasons. It's lighter, it's more floral, and I think it just has a better flavor profile. And lastly, I'm gonna crust. Yo, if you can't do this kind of like pat your tummy and rub your head at the same time, don't worry about it. Just throw your scallions in. But that's it, man. That is salt and pepper shrimp. I can't tell you how happy I am right now making this for you, knowing I'm gonna be able to eat this soon. Okay, so I'm gonna turn off the heat, let this stay warm, and I'm gonna show you how to plate up both dishes in a beautiful tableau of Cantonese food. I mean, with such beautiful food, you don't really need to do much. I've got some pretty plates. I think I'm gonna do the platter au shrimp, and I'm gonna try to pile up at the top. And you always want those crunchy, fancy bits at the top there, all the garlic and ginger. And then finally with the rice, vegetable fried rice. This is one of those meals where you become the kitchen hero. If you go in and all of a sudden you walk out with these two awesome dishes, I mean, dude. A little bit of garnish for the rice. Same for the shrimp. I think it would be fun to kind of teach you how to eat the head on shrimp. What a pro would do is take the head first and actually eat all that delicious stuff out of it. And I have a very specific way of doing it. I like eating the tail piece first because I think it becomes nice and crispy. And then I just follow it up with the body. If you fried correctly, all of the shell has basically become the texture of potato chips, right? That spice mix that you made gives you that savory pop, the salt pop, the ginger, the garlic. It really is a perfect Cantonese bite. And there it is, folks. Salt and pepper shrimp, vegetable fried rice. I hope I have inspired you to create your own Cantonese feast at home. And we'll see you guys next time on Ready, Jet, Cook. Time to get prepped for our pad thai. The first thing we need to really do is soak these noodles. Don't ever boil these noodles. Very simply soak them in warm water. So I got the noodle soaking, let's move on to more pad thai prep. The next thing I'm gonna cut is the savory tofu. So like any other protein, I just wanna cut this into a nice thin plank. So half first, and then line up both halves and cut them into thin little planks. As long as they're even and you can pick them up with a chopstick, they are a good size. So next I'm gonna do garlic chives. Now, you just wanna simply cut them into about 2-inch lengths on a bias, meaning instead of perpendicular, angle the knife, boop. There you go, just like that. Super simple. If you can't find garlic chives, don't freak out, just use scallions. All right, those are done, and always garlic. Just smash, 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 and then rough chop. So finally, I'm gonna show you a cool peanut trick. These are roasted peanuts, not salted. You can do the knife, but why knife it when you have a saucepan? And you're just simply gonna lean and press using the edge of a saucepan. And you get these kind of fun, uneven, big chunky shapes. And I'm not looking for absolute uniform peanuts because I want that kind of texture variance when I eat this. Boom, super easy. Peanuts are chopped. Now let's get to that banana leaf we bought at the store. These are actually really cool. They basically come right off the banana tree and they're giant. We're just gonna use them as a little plate garnish and I'm gonna show you what I mean. So I'm grabbing a little bowl kind of as a stencil. So I'm following the lines of the bowl. One way, I'm gonna come around the other way. And it's even, steady pressure. Now holding this down, lifting away the banana leaf, and hopefully I've done my job. And voila, perfect little circles. Aw, there you go, boom. This is done, let me move on to protein and sauce and we're ready to cook. Thai people believe in balancing 5 flavors: hot, sour, salty, sweet, and savory, also known as the yum. All that word means is the balance of hot, sour, salty, and sweet. First ingredient, fish sauce. It's salt and savoriness. After that,
a little bit of vinegar, but we're actually gonna use 3 kinds of sour. Vinegar was 1, lime juice, and tamarind. Now, as we know, tamarind is a fruit that grows around the equator. It has a nice sour and sweet flavor, all right? 3 sours in. Now we have to balance the salty and the sour with a little sweet, and that's just gonna be sugar. So for heat, traditionally, pad thai in Thailand is made with sriracha. Now, it's delicious, but if you're serving people who don't like heat, paprika is the perfect balancing point. Paprika, as we know, adds a lot of color because it is a pepper, but it's not too spicy. I like using both for this dish. So I'm just gonna bring all these flavors together. You wanna stir this up until the sugar dissolves. I mean, that's it. It's a lot of ingredients, but balanced together, they make a really phenomenal flavor. I just need to cut my protein, and we're in the pan. For this dish, I'm gonna be using chicken thigh. I think chicken thigh is nice and moist. It doesn't really dry out. I just want you to cut these into nice thin strips. So kind of cut large pieces in half first, find that grain, and then cut the chicken thigh into thin strips against the grain. Really just looking for even kind of bite-sized pieces when using chicken thighs. I'm gonna clean this down, wash my hands, and let's get cooking. Now that the chicken's ready, it's time to heat up our skillet. I'm using enameled cast iron. Always high temp oil, getting this pan very hot. And I can see the oil kind of shimmering and little wisps of white smoke starting. So I am starting with the dried shrimp, the garlic, the tofu. I'm just gonna saute these up until they start to lend their flavors to the dish. Now it's time for chicken. I wanna get this chicken seared on the outside, but still nice and rare in the middle, because there's a lot more to cook. When using eggs with noodles or rice, here's a cool technique. I want you to push all of the hot stuff in the pan against one side, pool up a little bit of oil on that open area, and we're gonna crack our eggs right into there. Don't scramble them yet. Let them kind of set and cook up, whites separated from yolks. And once they start to fry up a little bit, then you can kind of bring all the items together. With the eggs not cooked through yet, I want to pull the noodles right out of that water. And check it out. Just in a little bit of time, the noodles have gone from firm to nice and soft. And you want all that extra moisture in the pan to help create steam. So I've judged a ton of food TV, and most people get in most trouble with these noodles. They end up boiling them and then trying to stir fry them again. That is not the right way to go. You want to soak like we did and then get them into the pan, and that's how you get that beautiful kind of slippery, chewy texture that this pad thai noodle has. And if you end up over soaking them or do make the mistake of boiling them, just start over, get a new batch. They're super cheap. So the noodles look soft and cooked down. I'm gonna make a little nice area for the shrimp to be able to cook through. Let's get that shrimp to the bottom so all that heat can start cooking them through. And I'm also gonna throw in pickled daikon right now. So this is just pickled daikon radish, the white radish. Instead of being sour pickled like a lot of the Japanese or Korean, this is very sweet. So it's got a very bold sweet and slightly sour flavor. Don't be scared to really kind of work all the ingredients in the pan. Scraping is totally okay because you want to scrape the bits up before they start to burn. All right, so my shrimp are about halfway. It's time to add the sauce. So the sauce is actually going to start to boil immediately. That's going to create some steam. It's actually gonna deglaze the pan and get all those delicious bits up to the top. And I really wanna just work the noodles and all of the ingredients together to really soak up all of those 5 flavors. Here's a really fun trick to kind of cooking up the vegetables. I'm gonna make a bed, right, by kind of really laying everything out evenly. And I'm gonna add half my bean sprouts because I wanna leave some for plating. Some peanuts, leave some again for plating, and those garlic chives. And I want indirect heat here. I want to be able to steam these vegetables so they can kind of impart their flavors and not singe them. So I'm just tucking them in, reading them a story. It's time to put them to bed. Let them steam up for a few seconds before you plate this dish up. So heat's going off. I'm constantly kind of visually checking how much moisture is in this pan because pad thai should be moist, not dry, but it shouldn't be wet. So if I pull up the pad thai and it's dripping sauce, it's too wet. If it's too wet, just let it reduce a little longer. On the other side, if it's a little too dry, you can use the pasta water trick, meaning that soaking water can be added in there to just kind of hydrate the noodles a little more. So I'm gonna lay the banana leaf right in the middle, kind of like how they plate it if you're eating this in the streets of Bangkok. Let's lay my pad thai down right in the middle. And you always wanna put the goodies at the top, right? I mean, everyone wants to see the nice shrimp and the tofu right on top, so I like to arrange them kind of right around. Bring this over here, do some final garnishes, a little lime, some of the bean sprouts, and then some of my reserved peanuts. Starving. Just looking at this is making me hungry. So there it is, the Tila family pad thai recipe since 1972, believe it or not. Really one of my favorite dishes.